This conference will now be recorded.
What's that? What's the holdup? We're just now getting ready. I misunderstood her. She said we have no Matt or Mike tonight, and I thought, well, we don't have any microphones. How is this going to work? And she meant we don't have any attorneys tonight, so it takes us a little longer. Okay, we are ready to call this meeting to order. January of 2024. Roll call, please.
Ong, Kupi, Bayer, here. Lastly, here. McClanahan, here. Vaughn,
Here.
Miller, here. Terrell,
Here. And we would like to welcome Sam Miller from Washington. He's a alternate, and this is your first meeting, right? Correct. Okay, welcome. Okay, the zoning board conducts a public hearing to take sworn or affirmed testimony from all interested parties, both supporters and objectors on each case that appear before the board tonight. This is the only opportunity you will have to present testimony in opposition or support of tonight's petitions. Only those interested parties that have submitted notice 24 hours prior to tonight's meeting are allowed to cross-examine the petitioner. This is an opportunity to only question the petitioner, not to make statements or offer personal testimony. Upon final questioning, the interested parties may then make their closing statements. Others appearing here tonight and wishing to speak before this board must fill out a form, and it's located on the table at the back of the room, and you turn it in to either Jackie or Melissa, and you are allowed to make statements only. You cannot question the petitioner. Groups that oppose a petitioner's request are asked to appoint a spokesperson to speak for the group in order to avoid repetitious testimony and save time. Repetitious and off-the-subject testimony may be ruled out of order. Please refrain from repeating and be as factual as possible. Now, following the public portion of tonight's hearing, the zoning board will enter into deliberations where they make a finding of fact based upon a variety of different considerations. The board is not bound by strict rules of evidence, and it may exclude irrelevant, immaterial, incompetent, or repetitious testimony. But the zoning board does consider the following when deliberating all cases. 1, the county zoning ordinances. 2, the county comprehensive plan. 3, the county land use plan. 4, local municipalities comprehensive plans. 5, the public benefit. And 6, the best interest of the county. Now, for Class B variances and special use requests, the zoning board has final authority on those cases unless there's a lack of 4 concurring votes. For Class A variances, special uses, rezoning, and code amendments, the zoning board makes a recommendation to the county board, and the county board meets the 4th Wednesday of the month. For Class A variances, special uses, rezoning, and code amendments, the Land Use Committee will also review those cases and make a recommendation to the county board. The Land Use Committee meets the 2nd Tuesday of every month. For Class A variances, special uses, rezoning, and code amendments, the county board has final authority on those cases. Introductions tonight. I'm Chairman Dwayne Lesson. Jackie is our Community Development Administrator. Matt is not here. He's usually our Assistant State's Attorney, but Gabe is our Tri-County Planner, and Melissa is our Chief Deputy Administrator down on the end, and Denise is our new Community Development Assistant in the office. We don't have a reporter. We're having it filmed tonight. In the first row here is the zoning board members, and in the second row is the land use committee members. Does anybody have any questions before we get started? Okay, at this time is public comments on any matters not listed on tonight's agenda. Are there any public comments on any matters not listed on tonight's agenda? Okay, board members, it's been since November, our last meeting, so you have a copy of the November minutes in your packet, as well as they were emailed or sent out way back in November. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the November meeting?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Vaughn. Lapsley seconds. Is there any items to be corrected or noted in these minutes? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The minutes are approved. Okay, we're gonna have them come up here. Okay, our first case tonight is 22-37S. The petitioner is Nexamp Solar, Matt Walsh, requesting an extension of a special use approved 10-4 of 22 to allow the construction of a 5-megawatt commercial solar farm in a conservation district. This is a Class A case, and so the zoning board will make a recommendation to the county board. Is Matt Walsh or a representative of Nexamp here? Okay. Name and address for the record. Is that, no, there is no light on that one. Okay,
My name is Matt Walsh. I'm with Nextamp. Address is 101 North Wacker Drive, Suite 200, Chicago, Illinois, 60606.
do you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, self you God?
I do.
Okay, reports for tonight. Health Department, portable toilets and hand washing stations to be provided during construction. Tazewell County Soil and Water recommends denial. Tazewell County Farm Bureau and Tazewell County Highway Department has no comment. Do we have a video, or is it the same as the last 22?
It is the same as the last time.
Okay, and Gabe, is there any additional information from the Tri-County?
Yeah, total acreage of the proposed special use is 40 acres, but only 26.6 acres will be developed for the solar farm, leaving 14 acres remaining for agricultural uses. The proposed special use positions not only meet the county's necessary setbacks, but also provides additional over 300 feet of separation from the nearest residential use. And the proposed special use also utilizes existing vegetation to minimize any visual impacts. Considering these safety factors and the findings of fact to be 14 positive, I recommend approval for the special use.
Okay,
I have the video if you want to check it.
okay.
Hopefully there's no more feedback.
This is case number 22-37-S, petition by Nextamp Solar, request for special use to allow the construction of a solar farm in a conservation district. Exhibit A, construction is east. This is the proposed location of the solar farm. Construction is north on Wagon Cellar Road. Construction is west. And this direction is south on Wagon Cellar Road.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Matt, why don't you explain the request tonight?
Great. Thank you for having me tonight to hear our special use extension request. Since a little over a year ago, we've made pretty significant progress on the project. And next slide, please. Just to run through kind of where we're at this point. I've kind of outlined what we've accomplished, and we're pretty close to basically being ready for construction. At this point, we would have hoped to have already been under construction, but the site is in a floodplain, so we had significant delays working with the Army Corps of Engineers and IDNR for floodplain approval for the project, which we have since obtained. But that did slow things down and require construction to be pushed out until all the permits were in place. So since October last year, or in 2022, when the special use was unanimously approved by this body, we've signed an interconnection agreement with Ameren, Illinois. We've paid money to them to interconnect the project. So the funds are in place to make the connection to the grid. We've completed all of our surveys. And then in January of last year, we started the floodplain analysis, and that's when we started working with the Army Corps of Engineers to get information on a large area that they've studied in the past recently of the Mackinac River basin. And with that information, our engineers were able to prepare a hydrological analysis of the whole area. And we tweaked our design just slightly, removing some panels to accomplish the requirements of the IDNR. That back and forth took a good amount of time, and then in July last year, we were able to make our submission to the IDNR, and it took approximately 5 months for the IDNR to review the project and approve it. And in between that period, we received approval from the State Historic Preservation Office. We had wetland delineation completed, which was approved by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We've had geotechnical investigations complete, FAA sign-off, drain tile survey, and we've made significant design progress. So at this point, we started putting materials for the project. We've got all our permits outside of the building permit in place, and we're currently finishing the electrical and structural design of the project. With that, our next step is to apply for the building permit, which we anticipate to be in March, and shortly thereafter, we'll select the contractor to start construction. So the project is now has all its permits in place, sans the building permit and the special use extension. So the original special use was valid for 1 year, and we're requesting an extension to that to make up for the time that was lost with the IDNR. Next slide, please. So these are some slides that I shared last time, just to give you context. This is the location. The site is located at the northeast corner of Wagon Cellar Road and Hickory Grove Road. Next slide, please. And then this is just a little bit closer view. The area is in a floodplain, so there's not a lot of development in the area. Just to the southwest corner of the property is an Ameren substation, and at the south end of the site, there's an existing residential property that has pretty significant trees and shrubs that are screening the project. Next slide, please. So this was the proposed site plan that was presented last year, or in 2022, excuse me. And as you can kind of see when we go to the next slide, the site plan hasn't really changed outside of removing a few plant panels on the north edge of the site to provide adequate conveyance of water per the IDNR requirements of the floodplain. The project exceeds all previous setbacks and now the less restrictive code requirement for setbacks. I believe now the setback for residential properties is 150 feet for the nearest panels, over 300 feet away from the nearest residential property, and all the setbacks from the property boundaries are also in excess of side property boundary setbacks. Next slide, please. So this is the updated site plan. On the north edge, there were a few rows of panels that were removed in order to accommodate the IDNR's request. Next slide. These are just a couple images similar to the video. So this is the existing vegetation that's between the site of the project and the neighboring residential property along Hickory Grove Road. Next slide, please. And then this is looking north along Wagon Cellar Road. Next slide. Oh, that's it. So all the information is the same as the last time that I was here, but I'm available for any questions.
Okay. You made that comment, and I'm going to have Jackie help us digest this. This was approved in October of 22 under our current Tazewell County code at that time. Obviously, the state gave us new code, and the county ended up coming with new code. But if this is an extension of that approval, he is still under the setbacks of the code that he was approved under.
And they haven't changed anything
Okay.
from the prior approval. He's just stating that they're well within
The old
guidelines.
and the new.
Correct. They haven't changed anything from what we required previously, which in turn keeps it within the setbacks that are required today.
Okay.
Is that how you understand it as well?
Yeah, I'm sorry if I was confusing there. What I was trying to say is there was more restrictive setbacks previously.
Yes.
We are still following those, which are less restrictive under the new ordinance, which we're not subject to following.
Right, okay. Board members, questions? Yes,
What was the fencing around this project approved from the last time? What kind of fencing were you guys putting up last?
So what we're proposing is the knotted wire farm fence that has the wood posts. We find that that fits a little bit more in the agricultural context, but we are open to other ideas for fencing type, whether it's cycling fence or something else.
Because that is a wetland down through there, pretty much the whole thing is.
Yeah, Melissa, can you go back to the site plan slide? Yeah, there's, you can kind of see there's a delineated wetland that's kind of in a crescent shape on the left-hand side of the site plan. So the site is pretty flat and then it drops down along the west edge, and we're avoiding any fencing within the wetlands, but you're right, it is a floodplain, so that is kind of what took so long to get through the whole IDNR review and approval of our project. Thank you.
You know, also along the road there is a irrigation pump that they use to drain that area. Will you guys have control of that, or will the farmers have control of that irrigation pump?
So in our agreement with the landowners, we'll take over operation of it. That pump serves to make sure that there's not standing water on our site. We don't want standing water under our panels, nor do the neighboring property owners want that either on their properties.
And what were you using for grass? And I mean, was it natural seeding, natural?
Yep. So we're going to use a native pollinator mix. So we're using approximately 27 acres within the fence, and there's about 13 acres outside the fence. And the landowner has asked us to lease the entire parcel, which we're accommodating, and we're going to plant the whole site in pollinators, so 40 acres.
okay, to follow up on that, Don, I'm looking at Exhibit A in the packet, and the way I understand it, the fence goes around your panels, but it does not go into that crescent shape, I'm gonna call it waterway or wetland. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Correct. Yep. We've intentionally avoided any impacts to the wetland, including fencing.
Okay. Does that make sense, Don? That, okay. And it's kind of hard to tell, what's this dark area in the southwest corner?
Yep. So if you kind of see the grayed out box,
Yes.
just off of the driveway entrance, that's what we call the laydown area. That's where employees will park. When equipment comes, they'll drop the equipment there and then take it back.
Okay, other questions, board members? Land use?
So that could also be kind of crazy at times. And if you got the pump to drain the water, how long can standing water be there and still not damage what you have?
So the IDNR's requirement requires that all of our electrical equipment and panels and everything need to be above the high water line, the maximum level on a 100-year storm. And I believe the county's floodplain ordinance actually requires 1 foot of freeboard above that. So our bottom edge of our panels, all of our electrical equipment is 1 foot above the 100.
So you're elevated higher just to accommodate the potential water that's below.
Yep.
But how long can that stay there and still not hurt you? Are you okay with that, or?
Yeah, so I don't have a time frame that it can be that way, but it's basically indefinitely.
It could be a week there that the
Yeah.
water's staying there.
The only thing that would be in the water is the posts that hold the panels up, and those made of steel. So there really wouldn't be any damage to the system, even if for for extended floods.
And then the other question is, the vegetation that's already there, is that between you and the resident across the road? Is it on this property or their property?
Melissa, can you go back to one more? So it's maybe a little hard to see, but along the south property line, on the neighbor's property, they have vegetation that's pretty significant along the north edge of their property.
And so the only screening you were considering was that white, was a boarded fence or something like that?
We're proposing a knotted wire fence, so it's a wire mesh attached to posts. And then, to your point, yes, the existing vegetation that's on the neighbor's property is screened that is available for the project.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Land use or board members? Yes.
So with you being above the floodplain, just approximately how tall will the panels be up in the air?
Yeah, so with our original approval, we said that they'd be a maximum of 20 feet. That's still the maximum that they'll go, that the panels can reach up to. I don't anticipate that they'll go that high, but that's what we're requesting approval for, same as last time.
And how tall is this knotted fence that you're proposing?
So the knotted fence typically comes in either 7-foot or 8-foot heights. That's required by the National Electrical Code. So depending on the material availability, it will be between 7 and 8 feet tall.
So your panels are going to be well above that?
Yes, if the, say that the nominal height is 15-foot max at full tilt, there would be about 7 feet above the fence.
Now, are you tied to the company putting the solar farm across the road to the west of this project?
We're not associated with them. Outside of what staff has shared with me, I don't really have any association knowledge of the project.
Okay, other questions? Okay, Curtis Myers. Is Curtis, yes. Go over to this last chair and microphone. Is the green light on, listen? Good. Name and address, please.
Curtis Meyer, 7980 Whiting Cellar Road, Green Valley, Illinois.
And do you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, the way this works is we're gonna allow you a little time for opening comments. And then, because you filed your paperwork ahead of time, you can ask him questions and he can ask you questions, as well as the board and land use can ask questions as well. And then there'll be a short time at the end for closing comments. Okay?
Okay.
All right? Go ahead.
All right. My wife and I's wish is no for the extension because the solar farm going in right north. The picture of the property to the south, that's our house right there. And it changes our way of life by the view to the north. There is significant screening during the summer, but it's all deciduous, so there's not significant screening now. And it's not what we moved to. The substation was there to the west when we moved in, when we had our house built, but that's not right across the road from our house. And everything I've looked at says it pretty much lowers our property value if we ever decided to sell them, which we're not planning to sell them, but it does lower the value from things we've seen. And where we're at, we have limited opportunities for TV and internet, I just have broadcast TV and internet. I have a little Verizon jetpack that gives us a wireless signal to our computer. And I'm worried about the electromagnetic fields produced by the inverter of the solar farm. That could cause problems with that. And would like to have, if it is built, would like to have mitigations such as shielding or more screening that's not deciduous. So it would block the view more. I would like to have the inverter put as far away from our property as possible if this is built. Because the inverter is where from what I understand, is where the noise comes from, where the electromagnetic radiation comes from. There's a European study, the European Commission Scientific Committee on Emerging and Newly Identifiable Health Risks. And it said there is you can't rule out a possibility of the radiation from the solar farm causing health issues. Saying it could be carcinogenic. I have hairy cell leukemia. It's in remission now. It will eventually come back. That's just what it does. I'm worried that the radiation could hasten its return. Yeah. Flood study, we've lived there for 23 years, I guess. Maybe a little longer. No, 30 years. Sorry, we built in 93. And there have been some significant floods where there's a lot of water right across there from the back. And it doesn't happen often, but it does happen where it's come down to just the north side of the road across from our property. Granted, it's not often, but it does. The last one that I remember was in December of 2015. Also, right in this area, the snow geese tend to land there a lot, which is nice. And we have concerns with what if the company goes under, who's going to decommission the panels, and also who decommissions everything once their useful life is done. And yes, there is significant screening there when it's warm out, and during the winter time, there's not significant screening because it's all deciduous, so the leaves all fall off. And that's pretty much my.
Okay, how big is your property? 2, 3 acres or 5 acres or?
Our property is approximately where the house is. It's about 1 acre, a little bit more than that. It runs up the lane, comes from Wagon Road, goes east about 150 yards, whatever. I don't know if you can see the picture. I don't have a picture of it.
Okay.
And our,
yeah, you can see it just barely on there.
yeah, you can see it.
Yep.
And the 80 acres around our house, including the 10-acre field, you can barely see the triangle up there.
Yep.
That's also my property.
Okay.
My brother farms it, but I own it.
And then you had said the trees that are there deciduous, about how tall are they?
Some of them are fairly tall.
Okay. That's one thing that we've learned the last several years is that we are starting to require companies such as this to plant evergreen screening type trees, especially in a situation that is like this where there's a dwelling across the road. So, okay, let's get to some of your specific questions. Where he was concerned about the inverter. Where are the inverters located?
Next slide, please. So you kind of see this dark hatch at the end of the driveway where the inverter is located. So about 25% into the property.
Okay, I gotta get my bearings. And so go up to that one and go ahead and point to where the inverters are.
This is the inverter head.
Okay, and the way I understand your house, is it approximately where that half moon is across the road?
So this was the setback in the previous ordinance of the house, so right around here is where it's located.
Okay, is that, do you agree that that's your house roughly?
Yeah, I would say that's about where it's at.
Okay, and then you understand where the inverters are?
Yes.
Okay, do you have any other specific questions for him about inverters?
Are they gonna be shielded at all?
So they're kind of back behind the solar panels in the front sort of row there of kind of the north-south lines of the solar panels. So from that angle, they may be visible when the solar panels are at horizontal tilts at midday, but it's set back pretty significantly. I did bring a study from North Carolina State University that kind of outlines the EMF exposures from solar panel or from inverters, and at 150 feet, inverters emit about 0.05 mGs of magnetic fields, and that's less than kind of the background magnetic fields that we see from the Earth itself. So we're kind of exposed to magnetic fields just given the way that the Earth's magnetic field works. So at that distance, there's no harmful exposure.
Okay, you may not have specifics tonight, but approximately, what's the size of that inverter? Is it 3 foot tall, 20 foot tall?
Yeah, so there's kind of two different types of inverters. There's string inverters, which are mounted on a rack. They're, I don't know, probably about 2 foot by 2 foot, and they're about chest height, so somebody can operate them. And then there's also central inverters, which can be about the size of a transformer that you might see
In somebody's backyard.
yeah, right. So
Okay.
we have, for this project, I don't think we've made a decision yet of whether it's several small string inverters or one larger central inverter.
Okay. Any other questions pertaining to that, or?
I would prefer they're shielded, and I would prefer it being.
Okay, when you say shielded, what do you mean by that?
Some kind of metal to stop the, I know it's a low magnetic field radiation that comes out, but there's and
Like a metal wall that surrounds the inverter?
yeah, or on the side towards our house.
Okay. Okay, then, you also had questions about decommissioning,
Yes.
and we'll let him explain that, and then we'll also let Jackie explain what our code and our rules are about decommissioning. And he has to follow our code as well as the state code.
Yep. Well, thanks for that question. That's actually a really good one. I think to kind of back up, that's why a company like Nextname is a good option. We're the largest community solar developer in the country. We have projects all over the state, across the country, from Maine to Hawaii. We're very well capitalized. We're not a two guys in a truck sort of developer that may come through here at some time. But further, we signed a contract with the Illinois Department of Agriculture, the Agricultural Impact Mitigation Agreement, that requires us to follow certain measures to ensure that once the project's removed, it goes back to farmland, and also requires us to put up a decommissioning bond with the county. So there will be money put up with the county that in the unlikely event that something goes sideways, the county has the money to remove the system. I think that's why an extension, if I was in the county's shoes, is more preferable to a new application, because we will be following the old code, which I believe requires us to put 100% bond up, as opposed to the new code, which would be only 10%.
Do you want to add anything to that, or?
I guess the only thing that I would add is that the county does an inflation evaluation. Currently, the request is every 4 years. So we keep up with inflation and deflation of salvage pricing, just so we stay in line with where we need to be 40 years down the road. I think other than that, Matt covered everything.
Okay. Those were the two main questions that I've written down. Did you have others that you wanted to ask?
No, that was pretty much everything that I could think of.
Okay. Do you have any specific questions for Mr. Meyer?
No, I mean, I think you raised some good points, and adding landscape, I think, is something that we're willing to do, particularly on the south end of the project to help provide some screening. The metal enclosure, that may sound like a good idea, but really wouldn't provide any difference in magnetic fields that's emitted by the inverter. So I think distance is really the main factor of dissipation of the small amount of magnetic fields, I think, and I can submit this into the record, but the EMF study that was conducted by North Carolina State basically indicated that standing next to a microwave has more magnetic fields than being near an inverter. So it's minimal amount, and then when you talk about the nearest solar panel to your house is 150 feet, the inverter has to be at least double that distance. So, I'm sorry, 300 feet from your home. Double that distance, like 600 feet, is pretty significant, and shouldn't be of concern.
Okay. Board members, do you have any questions for Mr. Meyer? Yes.
Not for him as much as on Exhibit A in our packet here, you've got an inverter base and stuff set up on the east side center of your panels over there. When did they change them back towards the road?
Yeah, so when we were working with the IDNR regarding the floodplain, that's kind of the high point of the site, and the recommendation was made to reduce pavement and to also put the electrical equipment on higher ground. So it was moved a little bit closer to the road.
So how far is your pavement going to go into your project there?
I don't know that I have a dimension on that, but
Is Exhibit A that we've got, is this up to date? Apparently not.
Exhibit A is the submission from
22.
Yeah.
That's from 22.
Right, because
Okay.
see, the new map has those panels, I'm gonna call it the north or the top, removed. And then, like you had indicated, this road or stops, whereas on ours it continues on. And then at the end of that, I see that where it says transformer and inverter panel, but he testified that they gotta move it back to get to the higher ground to meet the IDNR requirements.
And just for a little context, with the new state law, the setbacks are 150 feet from residential property and 50 feet from a property line. So with this layout, it's actually significantly further back than what would be allowable under the current code.
Okay. Board members, other questions for Mr. Meyer? Yeah.
For Matt, will this cause interference with his electronics as far as his internet and his TV?
So we built a lot of projects that are closer to people's homes, similar situations, and we've never had any indication that they have cell phone interference or TV interference or radio interference. So I wouldn't anticipate that there would be any interference with this project.
Okay, land use?
Question, since the inverter is so critical point on these objection, I guess I've never known special uses to be bound by a site plan. That it's generally just best guess. Is this particular case bound by what's proposed to or does the ZBA have to, generally it's best guess, and then call the special, is this, is what he's presenting, does that have to be at least that?
So as far as if you were doing variance setback or something of that nature, then they wouldn't be able to go any closer than what they were approved. As far as a special use siting permit, as long as they meet the requirements of the setbacks in the code, then the siting of it, the location of it is what you are approving.
So I guess the question is, he's saying he's twice as far than what our code says. Technically, he could put it closer, couldn't he? Unless you put a provision in that he can't.
Right, if the zoning board of appeals or the county board wanted to condition it, that it be setback.
Or at least where he's, like
At
he
least
says.
where it's located now, right. I question that a little bit because that could be then indicative of being more stringent than what the state has set those setbacks at. I think that.
But that's critical to the neighbor, and even that's what was presented, but again, if you can go to whatever the state is, then.
I think that this is what was proposed. If the zoning board of appeals wanted to condition it such that it not be any closer than what he's proposing this evening, I feel like that would be acceptable. That at least puts that kind of someone's mind at ease that it couldn't go right up to the setback that's required or specific to.
And regardless, we would be amenable to that condition, whether or not it complies with what the state's attorney might think complies with the state requirement. This is the final site plan. We're basically ready for construction. We have all our permits in place, with the exception of building permit. So there's really nothing left to change. There's no one else to get input, such as the IDNR or somebody that might throw a wrench in the project.
Any other questions? Board members or land use? Yes.
I'm just looking through this, I don't see the length of term for this. Is it laid out as far as how long this will be in use or, and then demolition of that?
Yep, so the project will take, on the first slide I kind of laid out what we have left, and we would expect to start construction next spring. That will take between next spring and the end of the year to commission the project, which means turn it online. Once the project's turned on, then the project will operate for at least 20 years, and we have a couple of extensions that can take it up to 40 years. After 40 years, I can't remember what the code requirement is, but I think there's like 180 days to then remove the entire system. So that would be the entire length is 40 years plus 6 months to remove it at most. It doesn't take that long to actually remove it though.
Sorry. Do you have more of these in place right now, and how long? I mean, it's relatively new technology, I think, but what's your longest running one right now currently?
Yeah, so NextAmp is for solar companies is pretty old. We've been in we formed it as a company 16 years ago. So our first solar projects went in 16 years ago, primarily in the Northeast, and have expanded since then. So, a decade and a half is kind of the length that we've had them operating. Now, the solar panels are warranted for 25 years, so we're guaranteed that they're going to operate at a certain efficiency for the entire term. But much like a used car, just because the warranty's over doesn't mean that they don't operate very well. So there's been plenty of studies that expect solar panels to last 30 to 40 years. So that's kind of how we set the term of the agreement with the landowner. But we have certain milestones where we can evaluate how the system's working. If it's not up to snuff, then we can terminate the lease at the 20-year period or 25-year, wherever the extension periods come in.
Is there new technology that would change things?
I mean, I think solar technology is constantly improving. But once the system, we have a large upfront investment, and then after that, it's just a lot of maintenance. So once we make our investment, we intend to kind of stick with what we're installing for the entire term. It doesn't really make sense to pull everything out, reinstall something with newer technology.
Okay, board members or land use, any other questions for Mr. Meyer? Okay, now's your opportunity for closing comments.
First of all, I appreciate the opportunity to get to speak. Thank you for that. It does change things for us if it goes up north of us there, because it will be tall and we will see it unless there's some screening put up, because our stuff is deciduous. Still worried about the TV and the internet, because that's all we have out there. The Verizon jetpack and whatnot. I still would like the inverter as far as it could be from us. That's not my decision. I'd still like it as far away as possible. It's basically all I have.
Okay, thank you, you're excused.
Thank you.
Okay, board members, land use, any further questions for the petitioner? Yes.
On this interference that you was questioning you about, if there was interference, what do you have that would you work with to try and solve that problem, or what is the?
Yeah, I mean, we're long-term owners, so we want to be good neighbors. Again, we've never seen that issue before in our hundreds of installations. But we're going to be there for the entire duration of the project, from construction all the way through decommissioning. So we would certainly work with the Myers to make sure that whatever we're doing isn't interfering with their lifestyle. But again, it's hypothetical. How do you fix a problem that doesn't really exist? But we would do what we can to make sure that if there was, we'd investigate it and try to mitigate it.
Okay,
So your company would be fine by putting some kind of a barrier along the south side of the property line to kind of help hide that, and possibly, instead of the fencing that we've seen in the past that is not very attractive, plus you're putting wooden posts in a floodplain that it stays wet a lot of the time, would you be opposed to putting in something like chain link fencing around it?
Yeah, chain link in the farm fence are very similar, so we're happy to change it to chain link if that's something that this body would prefer. And then as far as landscape screening, that's something that we are always happy to offer if a neighbor is interested in having us put everything.
okay, other questions? Okay, we've learned a lot over the last several years. One thing we always like to make sure of is that you you've already indicated this is a wet parcel, and we've had some, solar farms that have been built, and they muddy up the roads pretty good, and we don't stand for that anymore. As well as, will this parking area and staging area be enough for, the construction trucks and vehicles?
Yeah, so we size that based on the experience that we have with the number of employees that'll be on site, the number of deliveries. So we have 1 to 2 deliveries a day. So generally the trucks can pull in and pull out and stay on the gravel. So that staging area would be stripped of the black topsoil, put temporary gravel in so it's clean, trucks aren't driving in the mud, and then the gravel is scraped out at the end and the dirt is pushed back into the void. We do have our agreement in place with the county highway department, so my understanding is Hickory Grove Road is a county highway, so we have our permit in place with them, which I believe includes removing or preventing the roads from trucking and whatnot.
Okay, and, well, the other part of it too is that the workers' cars are not parked alongside the road, because the Myers is when they need an ambulance or a fire truck, they want to make sure that it can get down the road to their house.
Yes.
And we've seen that in the past, that construction companies just park wherever they is convenient for them.
Yeah, and that's something that we avoid. I think if that's a condition added to the plan for just peace of mind, that's something that I think is fair to include.
Okay, then the other thing is, we've already gone through that basically your original approval is under the code that was in effect at that time. And there's a new code that's been adopted, but you need to make sure that the setbacks are correct, because we've had solar farms built and the engineers or someone made a mistake, and then they came back to us and said, we're too close to the property line, we want a variance, and we're not gonna give you a variance. You got one chance to do it right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally understandable. And
Somebody needs to
inexcusable
double check
to
it,
not
triple
build
check.
it per the plans, so I would agree.
Well, but there's, when you get engineering firms involved and they go, well, do I go from the center of the road, or do I go from the property line, or do I go from the ditch? You have to make sure that everybody involved is on the same page and it's the correct page.
Right.
Okay.
Just for the record, I believe that the property line is near the center of the road, but our setbacks are measured from the right-of-way line, which is into the landowner's property.
Okay. The next problem we've had, and I think you've already addressed this, is even though the landowner may only get paid for the amount of acreage that is inside the fence, our permit is for the whole acreage, and we found that the solar farms will mow and maintain the vegetation inside the fence, but then the outside of the fence looks terrible. And your permit is for the whole acreage.
Yep, understood. With this landowner, we are renting, even though we're not using for solar panels the whole property. We will be responsible for the whole entire 40 acres.
Okay?
That was gonna be my next question, was
Yep.
in regards to the pollinator fields are great and they're pretty, but they don't, it's not an instant thing. So the few that I've seen going in, the pollinator fields are not, they're weeds. And and then of course you put in the fencing that, my honest opinion, looks like a concentration camp fence. And then you got weeds growing everywhere. I've not seen any pollinator. I mean, I'm looking for the beautiful sunflower, the wildflowers, all that stuff, and I think that's gonna be great, but it's not an instant thing. So it's almost like they're planning this stuff and then just letting it go in hopes that in 3, 4, 5 years, there might be some pollinator-looking flowers. But I guess my question is what is your protocol for weed control until that stuff gets going?
So during the establishment period, which is kind of the 3 to 5 year period you referenced, we mow it frequently. And then once it's established and it's, you know, a prairie again, then it doesn't need to be mowed as frequently. That's the weed control that we use at the beginning. And then once it is established, then we do spot spraying of herbicide on any weeds that would be growing. So essentially the idea is once the pollinator habitat is established, it chokes out all the weeds. But you're right, they can't take a foothold if you don't do the proper protocol and maintenance at the very beginning. It becomes very difficult to maintain a pollinator site then.
Okay, thanks, appreciate it.
Okay, other questions? Okay, now's your opportunity for closing comments.
I don't really have any closing comments, other than just thanks for your time. We're really excited to become part of the Tazewell County community. We've made significant investment already. We're excited to get started on the project, and we're following all the requirements and codes that were previous, that are more stringent than the current code. So hopefully we'll receive an extension for this project. So
Thank you. You're excused. Okay, our next case is 22-38S. EDPR requesting an extension of a special use approved in October of 22 to allow the construction of a 5-megawatt commercial solar farm in a conservation district. This is a Class A case, and so the zoning board will be making a recommendation to the county board. Isaac Meyer or a representative. Name and address, please.
Isaac Meyer, 1501 McKinney Street, Suite 1300, Houston, Texas, 77010.
And you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Okay, reports, health department, portable toilets and hand washing stations provided during construction. Tazewell County Soil and Water recommends denial. Tazewell County Farm Bureau and the County Highway Department had no comment. The City of Beacon and Groveland Township Road Commissioners both had no objection. And Mike Harris from IDOT had no objection. Do we have video?
This is case number 22-38-S, petition by EDPRNA DG Illinois. Request for special use to allow the construction of solar farm in A1 district. From Exhibit A, this direction is east. This is the proposed location of the solar farm. This direction is north of California Road. This direction is west, nearest residence to the west. This direction is south on California Road.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Gabe, is there any additional land use information on this one?
Yes. The total acreage of the proposed special use is 101 acres, but only 30 acres will be developed for solar farming, leaving 71 acres remaining for agricultural uses. The site design not only meets the county's necessary setbacks, but also provides approximately 500 feet of separation from the nearest residential use. The proposed special use will also have a low height profile to minimize any visual impacts and have a chain link fence to prevent unwanted access. With these factors and the findings of fact being 12 positive and 2 non-applicables, I recommend the approval of the special use.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Isaac, why don't you explain the request?
Absolutely, thank you. Again, Isaac Meyer, EP Renewables. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Yes, so we're looking for a 1-year extension on the request strictly because we are still working with Ameren on interconnection for the system impact study. That process is still ongoing. We expect it to be finished by the end of this month. That will allow us to then complete the site plan and then move forward with actually constructing the project. Again, this is a 4.95 megawatt project, subprime ag land, significant setbacks from residential properties. EchoCat has been complete, no issues there, no wetlands, no floodplain issues. Again, this was unanimously approved in October 2022. If given the extension, once we complete the system impact studies, we do expect to have this fully constructed with a COD of Q1 2025. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions for Mr. Meyer? Okay, I'm looking at Exhibit A and B, and the purple outline is the rough estimate of the solar panel grids. Is that correct?
That is going to be correct.
Okay, and within that purple outline, there's several batches of trees. Are you bulldozing any trees, or what's going on?
I'm not sure. I'm looking back at Mr. Hillman. I believe we might be, but I would have to confirm with some of the other project developers on the team.
Okay, in our first 2022, did we have a map that kind of roughly showed the arrays? Okay.
So they're just delineating this site area.
And you've got Illinois Department of Ag permits and approvals for this?
We do have environmental permits in place, however, studies in place. However, our AMA is not finalized yet. That is in process. The issue is we're waiting on our system impact study to provide the final site plan, which will allow us to complete the AMA.
And so back to my question, you don't know what's the deal with these trees and whether that's a gully or a waterway or?
There are no wetlands on the property. I don't know if we are clear cutting those trees. However, what I can do is get an answer to that and have it to you guys by the end of this meeting.
Okay, board members, questions? Yes.
So once again, since we can't see how the solar arrays are going to be positioned, where is your lane coming in outside at?
You can look at either, I think I see exhibit B in front of you. If you look on the left side of that, you see the red boundary with some trees. The lane will be coming in on the southwest side of that. It'll be gravel lane coming in to the project area. The southwest portion of the project area is where the substation and other laydown yard areas will be.
So they will be outside that purple area?
No, they'll be, well, the lane in,
Inside.
the lane in will be outside the purple area, but everything else will be inside.
Everything will be inside the purple area.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, if you look on exhibit A,
Yeah, that's correct.
they don't have the purple line on exhibit A, it's kind of a light blue line. But it's the white lane coming from the west. And then they do have a black box there indicating, inverters, switchboards, transformers, disconnects in that corner. Okay, other questions?
So the rest of the property, would that be farmed?
The rest of the property, the 70 remaining acres can be farmed, it will be farmed, I believe.
Okay, so you're only doing inside the purple area then, correct?
Correct, that's approximately 31 acres, the broader property is about 101. And we're only using that 30. And as you see, it's about 500 feet from the nearest residential property.
Land use, yes.
First, I would commend you by putting about as least intrusive as possible on this track. That's a good look. You did what you could there. But at the same time, I am looking at the soil and water conservation recommendations, stuff like that. You said subprime, their recommendations aren't subprime, those are pretty good. I know there's some tree lines in there, but those trees are there for a reason, because probably there's a waterway or something there. They had concerns about waterway drainage, and you said subprime was mostly one of the first words you said. They said prime, I guess I'd like you to explain that.
Sure, my apologies, you're right. The actual analysis is very specific. The majority of the project would be considered as subprime. So that non-prime ag land is the majority of that project.
And what do you consider subprime?
What is outlined in the study here. In the report from the Soil Conservation District. The majority that they say is not prime that's not prime. Let me pull it up for you.
If I look at the wrong one, the 2229S,
There is a portion that discusses that some of that land is prime, but the majority is not prime. That's what I'm getting at.
is there any drainage issues here? I'm not sure. It doesn't give a topo on it and stuff like that, so I'm not sure if there's waterway issues. Soil water conservation said it was. I'm just asking.
To my knowledge, there are no floodplain or wetlands issues on that parcel, but I can get a definitive answer for you.
Right, the question, not that there is, but all these have been, those that aren't on flat, we've always discussed some kind of a drainage plan for those that need them, so this doesn't look as severe as some, but I'm not sure if there's an issue there for drainage.
Let me get an answer back to you on that, okay?
Other questions? Yes.
I see the access road to get there, but where are they gonna, the offloading and parking and where is that gonna be?
So my understanding is that the access road will be off California Road. I don't have information on the parking, but I'll get an answer for you on that. I don't want to make assumptions, but I'll get you an answer.
Okay, other questions? you heard our concerns with the previous, solar, project. And how do you guys plan on maintaining and mostly getting established the pollinator-friendly, undergrowth?
So I know we'll do all the necessary mowing to make sure that it gets established properly. And yeah, that's what we'll be doing to start with.
Yes.
I didn't catch it, but this does seem self-contained, but is there some kind of fencing there, even though it's self-contained?
Yes, there
And what kind of fencing?
it'll be a 7-foot chain link fence.
Yeah, I think that was the first time around. Chain link was involved in the first time. So, the first approval, I guess. And you're aware of, like the discussion we had with the previous one, that you need to make sure engineers and everybody is on the same page, that the setbacks are correct and there's no variances granted.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, my biggest concern is we've asked several questions and I've noted at least 3, maybe 4 times you've said, well, I'll have to get back to you on that. We're meeting tonight. And we've got several choices. Take your word for it, which we found with solar farms, we don't take anybody's word for it anymore. And so we don't have final say, only the county board does. Now, you may have the information that the county board may be able to make a better decision than we can recommend tonight. But how would you feel about postponing this and bringing back accurate, up-to-date information next month?
I would not have a problem with that.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, closing comments?
Members of the board, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Let me apologize for not having answers to some of the questions that you guys had this evening. I apologize for that. We will have answers at the next meeting, and I appreciate your time and consideration.
Okay, you're excused. Oh, I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong paper. Okay, our next case is 2402V, petitioner Judah International Ministries requesting a variance to waive the requirements to allow a 1,350-foot addition for a church as approved on 10/3/23 to be 14 feet from the side property line, which is 16 feet closer than what's allowed in an A1 ag district. This is a Class B request, so the zoning board does have final authority on this case tonight. And you're Stephen Kerr?
Yes, I am.
Name and address, please.
Steve Kerr, 5703 North Woodlawn Court, Peoria, Illinois, 61614. Basically, we're...
Okay, wait a minute.
Oh,
Do
sorry.
you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, self you got?
I do.
Okay, Health Department contacted the petitioner directly for the information they needed. Soil and Water and Farm Bureau had no comments. Tazewell County Highway Department and Mackinac Township Road Commissioner had no comments. And the Village of Mackinac also had no comments. And we've seen the video before. Do you have that yet? Okay, let's look at it real quick.
This is case number 24-02-B, issued by Judah International Ministries. Request for a variance to allow the construction of an addition to be closely allowed in an A1 district from Exhibit A. This stretches west. This is the proposed addition. This stretches south. This is the drive that leads to Fast Avenue. This is the nearest residence to the south. This stretches east. Nearest residence to the east. And this direction is north.
Okay, thank you. And this is a variance, so Gabe doesn't provide any input for us, so Mr. Kerr, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is basically a follow-up to the special use that happened in October, and a little confusion on my end. I thought the variance was part of the special use process, so now we're back requesting the variance. So basically, this property is zoned A2, which has a 25-foot side yard setback, and we're showing the part of the building being torn down and reconstructed, and where it's being reconstructed would have an encroachment of possibly as much as 15 feet on one corner and 14 feet on another corner over that setback. All the adjacent properties and the adjacent property on this property line are zoned R1, and R1 has a 10-foot setback line, and we're kind of we're A2 surrounded by R1 or city residential, I believe, on all sides. So we have this A2 piece of property with more strict setbacks than all the adjacent properties around it. So we're requesting a variance to be able to build this.
Can you roughly show me here on either A or B where the two parcels?
So it's right here and right here.
Oh, I see, okay. If you look at Exhibit A, it's down here in this bottom part, the new proposed, you see those two angles, one of them says 16 and the other one says 15. Okay, that's the distance from the nearest property line. And as Mr. Kerr explained, and then I talked with Jackie on this, it was an oversight on their part and the county's part. We did not pick it up the last time that they were in for their building construction plan. This has not changed since then. This was on their original plan, and we just didn't pick it up that they were too close to the line. And so it's not only their fault, but it's somewhat ours that we didn't catch it at that time either. And as he stated, the nearby properties are, what do we say, R1, and there is a reduced setback for R1. And so if he was R1, the setbacks that they're proposing would be acceptable. Yes.
The property is zoned A1 agriculture, not A2. Setbacks would have been the same. For an accessory structure, they would have been 15 feet. However, this is an addition to the principal, which makes it the 30.
Okay. Board members, questions? Yes.
So the spot in question, you're just going into trees, correct?
Yeah, that's all a ravine between, it's a private landowner between Mackinac Water Tower and, I don't know exactly how wide, but it's a ravine between the water tower property and our property.
Okay, so it's not farm, it's nothing, it's just a group of trees.
Yes.
Other questions? Land use? Have you started construction yet?
No,
Okay.
no.
You're gonna wait for nice spring weather? Yes.
So you said something about existing that was tore down, is this the same footprint or?
No, the existing footprint is actually a smaller footprint. This is part of an original structure that I may be off on the dates, but it was built as a TV center back in the 30s. And that a good portion of that's being torn down with a new addition being put up.
Okay, other questions? Okay, closing comments?
Nope, thank you.
Thank you. Our last case tonight is, right, 2403B. Steve Marshall requesting a variance to waive the requirement to allow the construction of an accessory structure to be 1 foot from the edge of the right-of-way, which is 24 foot closer than what's allowed in an R1 district. This is a Class B case, and so the zoning board will have final approval on this case. Steve Marshall? Name and address, please.
Stephen Marshall, 301 Shelby Lane, East Peoria, Illinois, 61611.
And do you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Health Department, Soil and Water and Farm Bureau all had no comment. Tazewell County Highway Department and Groveland Township and Ty Livingston with the city of East Peoria, all 3 of them had no comment. So if we've got a video.
This is case number 24-03-B, petition by Steve Marshall. Request for a variance to allow the construction of an accessory structure to be closer than allowed in an R1 district. From Exhibit A, this direction south. This is the approximate location of the proposed accessory structure. This direction is east. This is east on Shelby Lane. This direction is north. This direction is west on Shelby Lane.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Marshall, why don't you explain your request?
I think the request can be explained by looking at Exhibit B. On our property, which is highlighted in red, we propose to build a building on the northwest corner of the property. There is an odd shape there that confounds the right-of-way issue. Assuming that the top of the picture is north, the northern line of the right-of-way takes a, for lack of a better term, divot into our property from 25 feet from the center of the road to 60 feet from the center of the road. Because of the topography of the area and the gully that is immediately south of that, it would be ideal to put the building pretty much right on that line, which would really affect nothing. If the line weren't there, we wouldn't have to request a variance. And no one really knows why that line,
Why this divot's out of it?
Yeah.
Does that Shelby Lane go on to the northwest?
Shelby Lane goes about 30 yards from the edge of my property, and then actually turns south, there's a,
Okay, I see that, but between the trees.
yeah,
But there's no houses
there are no houses back there. There's,
down farther.
yes.
And is Shelby Lane, the township maintains that, or is it a private lane, or?
Great question.
I was just about ready to say.
Shelby,
I noticed it was gravel.
I have learned a lot from this experience. The interesting thing is, my property is not in the city of East Peoria. The land immediately to the east of my property and north of my property is considered city of East Peoria. Ergo, I've been told that the city of East Peoria is responsible for maintaining Shelby Lane. So we have lived in this property for 15 years, and they've come out and graded it once in a while when potholes get terrible when we ask them to. This year, they actually did it without us asking. Somebody else must have complained, but nobody else drives there. They don't plow it for snow.
Okay. Yeah, because obviously it's not gonna continue on to the northwest. 474 is not gonna let it cross
That is correct.
that way. And so.
No, it's access for, there's a couple farmers' fields in the back there.
Okay, so through the trees they can get back there.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the divot that's out, you don't know if that's part of the roadway or nobody knows?
Well, I've been told, and no one really
Right.
knows for sure, but it is, it's called a roundabout or a turnabout.
Oh, yeah, cul-de-sac.
But there's
Okay.
no other houses there. Clearly, no houses will be built north of our property.
Well, it's a ravine, or that's
Well,
what you
No,
indicated.
north of our property
Oh.
is 74.
Yes, I understand, yeah.
To the west of our property is fairly heavily, there's a lot of ravines over there. And
Okay. Board members, questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see where the road takes a turn and it heads to the south again. And you're saying that a farmer can access, I don't even see a field in there.
well, you don't see the field because the road, I don't have any pictures of that. The road goes south for a distance of about 200 yards and then turns west again. And there are fields west that are out of this picture.
Okay, and it looked like on the video that there was a fence or a gate, a gate across that road. Where
That is
nobody
correct.
can get down that road anyway.
The farmer has. Right. There's no traffic. The only traffic through there is a farmer and a hunter once in a while.
Okay, other questions? Okay. And it may just be a figure of speech, but you had indicated in your request you want to be 1 foot from the edge of the right of way. Whereas when you said it, my new building would need to sit about right on the line in order to avoid the ravine. And so,
1 foot would be adequate.
okay. And you're fairly certain you know where that line is?
I actually had it surveyed.
Oh, okay. Because we've had this before and everybody thought, well, that's where the line was and they built the
No,
building.
there are,
There's markers.
the video, may or may not, and I have pictures similar to the video, but there are markers there right now.
Okay. And then you're gonna access this via your regular driveway.
Yes, and that's the other reason that it's kind of important to have it built
Okay.
right next to the right of way, because the building is being built to house
Okay,
And I can drive to the north of the existing building without too much difficulty.
yeah.
South of the existing building, there's a bigger beat, and I can't get the turns down.
And then that's, I think you indicated that, that's usually our next question. This building is for personal use, you're not gonna be a rent storage building?
No, this is for storage of an RV trailer that
Okay,
is 9 foot 6 inches tall, and the door to my existing building is 9 foot 3.
you could have left the air out of the tire.
I can't. I tried.
And then, we use a common term, is this a Morton type building, or what type of building are you
It is a
doing?
Morton type.
Okay. I know there's a lot of different similar.
It is not a Morton building, but it's similar to that.
Okay. Other questions? And no water or electricity in it, just cold storage?
We probably will have electricity to it.
Okay.
At some point, no water.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, any closing comments?
No, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the public portion of tonight's hearing. And we will take a short break, and then we will come back and start deliberations.
I don't mind.
Shall be available from, you wanna pop in early? Okay. You'll be out. I would have, yep.
She's retired now.
Okay, okay.
I love her. Oh, I just love her.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
You want Judy to come around?
Okay, looks like everybody's here, so we will, Jackie's getting her paperwork ready, and we will start the deliberations portion of tonight's meeting. Okay, first case is 2237S, the Nexamp Solar, requesting an extension for a 5 megawatt commercial solar farm in a conservation district. This is a Class A recommendation, so we will only make a recommendation to the county board. We do not have final authority on this. Is there a motion to get this on the floor? Okay, Vaughn moves. Fair seconds. Okay, we gotta get the right paper here. Okay, I passed out to you, kind of a example of various requirements that we have put on, some solar farms in, recent history. With these being old cases approved under the old system, we gotta abide by the code that they were under at that time, as well as there's certain aspects of the new code that we also have to make sure we and they abide by. And so he indicated that it was gonna be a knot wire style fence, and there's several times in the past where we required a chain link fence. And so, we also had a discussion during the testimony about vegetation and the perimeter, the vegetation outside the fence as well as inside the fence. And we want to see the whole property maintained, not just what they're paying for. We've also in the past required emergency and non-emergency contact information posted somewhere by the entrance or the gate or something, so that if the fence is growing up with weeds, we can call them and say, you've got X number of days to fix it. Or if there's an emergency, you know, who does the fire department or the EMS need to contact? And then we've also required vegetative screening on these solar farms, especially when there's a nearby dwelling involved. And in this case, we've heard that the screening across the road on the neighbor's property was deciduous, and he said when all the leaves are down, I can just look right through them. And so it would probably be appropriate for us to maybe require some vegetative screening across the road from the house. And so we can do it several different ways. We can do it one at a time and add it on, or you can add it on as a group, or, you know, a group of 4 or 5 requirements. It's up to you guys. So questions, ideas. You can also look in the back of your packet at the findings of facts. Like I said, those are fairly consistent anymore because of the way the new state code and our new adopted code is addressed. Thoughts or ideas?
I like the idea of the chain link fence, over the knot fence, like they have put up in the past along Route 9 and Springfield Road.
Yeah, we've gotten comments that that style of fence sometimes looks like a concentration camp
It
fence.
looks trashy. It really does.
Yep, Jackie?
I I understand that that's what you prefer, but this is in a floodplain, so I would just ask that if you are gonna make that a condition, state that that's what you prefer, if that's allowed by IDNR. The steel posts, I don't think are a problem, but, you know, we don't wanna put them in a position where now you've required chain link that's smaller flow-throughs, and that's something that IDNR isn't going to approve for their floodplain permit at the state level.
Okay, other discussion? I also think it would be appropriate in this case to put something that says the inverter will be no closer to the adjacent dwelling than what's on their proposed site, or something like that, because that, we don't want them to come back and say, well, we really need it down in that corner, or, you know, down farther or something, because the way it looks now, it's gonna be approximately 600 feet or more from the closest dwelling. And they could have it, you know, somewhere down in that corner. And, but they indicated that, you know, that this drawing is pretty much final, and that, and so we could make a requirement that it be no closer to the dwelling than what is in the proposed Exhibit A.
Could you put it as agreed upon by the petitioner?
Yeah, as agreed upon by
I don't know
testimony.
if you do that, but he agreed to it while he was standing there.
Yeah.
I think too, that maybe just to give Mr. Meyer a level of comfort, that, you know, maybe a steel barrier right next to that would be appropriate. It would, I can't assume that it would cost much to do that. And then it would just make, you know, Mr. Myers.
A good neighbor gesture.
Exactly, and he would look at that and he would be like, you know what, they're doing what they can to help me or to address my concerns. I think that would be a good thing. That's all I got.
I have no idea though what we would, what are you thinking as a?
Well, I mean, a steel barrier, I mean, you could have steel posts in the ground with a steel plate that would, you know, would do two things. It would block any kind of whatever magnetic field he's concerned about, and then also would hide the
Inverter.
As well. So, and then they could even plant some trees next to that to hide that if they wanted to. So.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna, when you say steel barrier, I'm assuming you're not saying a sheet of Morton Building 10.
Well, if
but then that
could be, yes, maybe.
I'm thinking that
Maybe.
could be as well. Okay, yes?
Since we get bids on it too, whatever, the gentleman's probably gonna get a reoccurrence whenever he has, whatever disease he has anyhow.
He indicated that.
It's gonna happen, so, you know, I agree with any kind of measure that would say we did as much as possible, so it didn't occur a day earlier than it should have. And there may be other barriers out of metal that do that too, accomplish the same things. I don't know if it is or not.
Yeah.
But there may be another.
And maybe just, I don't know enough, you know, other than he had indicated a study that magnetic field, the normal magnetic fields we experience are no greater than what's the inverter provides.
And you're gonna feel it under the, I mean, magnetic field is gonna travel under the ground anyway, so I don't think I don't know where a steel, I don't know where a steel wall.
Well, the point I was getting at is if they had some kind of dense barrier, whether it be a very dense vine or shrub or, you know, something like that, whether that would serve the same purpose as a metal barrier, I don't know.
Well, what about the evergreens fire as a screen.
Yeah, I'm anticipating we're still gonna require that across from their house,
Right.
okay?
I'm saying for as far as the inverter is what they're wanting, or what about like a,
I don't think you want a tree,
no, what about privacy fence panels and stuff?
yeah, some
You know,
kind of
fence,
privacy.
I know that's what I have covering mine on the backside, so I don't see them for mine, the inverter and all that stuff.
Right. And so you're talking about a solid privacy
Privacy fence
type
panel.
fence panel.
Where that inverter.
And is yours wood? Is yours wood?
Yeah, it's just wood, yeah,
Okay.
they have.
Just tall enough to cover the
Eight, whatever, yeah,
Yeah.
privacy fence panel.
dog ear
8 foot.
panels.
Yeah.
Well, I think anything that would just, you know, be in good faith with the landowner or, you know, across the road.
Yeah, the neighbor.
Yeah.
Okay?
So that he doesn't have to look and see,
And I wouldn't think it would be obtrusive to the company, the solar company. Okay, other thoughts, ideas?
Well, if you use chain link fence around by that converter, they've got the slats that'll go through the fence that'll hide that also.
Yeah,
That would take
that would be on
care
the,
Take
this
care of
map
the
is right on the east side.
Cause,
Although there's nothing on the east side except farm ground, right?
right, you know, that area is not prone to water rushing through that area.
It sits,
It sets.
comes up to the
That's-
bottom.
That's the whole idea behind that irrigation pump sitting there. There's no irrigation. There's a pump along the road that they had to use to draw the water down when it got too wet.
Okay, so I'm looking at exhibit A, and, the neighbor's house is directly across the road. About where is the irrigation pump?
The irrigation pump is on Wyken Cellar Road
Oh,
where, it showed, there used to be an old property there.
okay,
It sits right there in the ditch,
okay.
right along the road.
And so it pumps the water west?
It pumps the water to the south
Okay.
because there's a large drainage ditch
Oh, yes, I see that.
down through there. So it pumps it to the south, goes under the road, and then to the drainage ditch to the west.
Okay.
And that's the only thing that's really used for.
Just to pull the water
Just
table
pulls the
down?
water table down,
Okay.
yeah. Because that is good farm ground there, really good farm ground.
Yeah, okay. Okay, other thoughts, ideas?
I know there'll be about 6 poles down there, down along the west side, down by, across the road from his lane.
Yeah.
Sticking up there, showed that in there.
Right across from the substation.
Yeah,
Yeah. You know, when it's all said and done, that's one of the most ugliest things
it is.
for solar
It
farms.
really
It's
is. It's
those
a pole,
big
pole.
poles right there. I don't know, some engineer needs to figure out how to do something better there.
Yeah.
Although they use a pole to get across the road,
Right.
is what most of them are.
Yeah.
It's still one of the more ugly things of the solar array.
You think, you're gonna put a 7 to 8 foot fence and those solar panels at the tip of tilt are 20 foot high. So, you're gonna see them no matter what.
Yeah.
You're gonna see them. I don't care what you plant there. It'd have to be a darn tall tree to hide something like that.
Well, in the past, we required that the vegetative screening be 3 to 5 feet at planting.
Yeah.
And so are you thinking it maybe should be 5 to 7 feet in this instance?
No, I think 3 to 5 is fine.
It's gonna take several years.
It's gonna take quite a while
for it to get
to get up
They're
there.
gonna be decommissioning.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
really, if you think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
I know. It is
Okay? So based on our discussion, the 4 items that we've got in front of you, are you comfortable with those? Okay, do you want a specific location for the 3 to 5 trees, or a 3 to 5 foot vegetative screening? Do you want it across from his house and extended past his house by 100 feet each way, or any particular thought there? Because I don't think we need to require it for that whole south property line.
I would say the immediate across, and, I mean, I think 100 foot on each side would probably be just.
I mean, their fence.
Yeah, minimum of 100 feet. Yes. Right. And then, I hate to do this to Jackie, and maybe you as a board don't want to do this, is we could include something that the inverter be screened or, what's another term we could use?
What's the property on Wagon Cellar? The house? Is
It's
that
not
house or
there
is that
anymore.
that's not there anymore?
Now they
Okay.
tore that down.
Okay, because that's what it was looking, it looks like. I'm like, it looks like it's just.
Yeah, you can still see part of the old farmstead.
Okay,
in
that's what I
that.
was trying to figure out.
In fact, there's a solar farm going to where that's at.
Yeah.
There's a solar farm going in there right now
Okay.
on the west side.
Yeah.
So, and that's their laydown area where that old farmhouse is at.
Okay, back to our inverter, I think we need to include that the setback be no less than what is proposed on Exhibit A. And what's your feeling on screening of the inverter? Yes?
I haven't Googled it and see what works and stuff like that. If it's magnetic stuff, there's not much that can.
Right.
If they can do it, it can kind of, I guess, it's not as easy as sticking something in front, so you gotta, the only way you can really do it is give it a path of going someplace else.
Right.
Is the only way you can do it, stuff like that. It may not be as simple as just throwing a wall there, that may not.
Yeah, that's why I said it's an area that is unknown, and I think part of it too is, he testified several different times. We've got solar farms that are 15 and 16 years old that we really haven't had any problems with. Nobody's complaining about TV interference or cell phone interference or anything.
I guess I get more or less for the health reasons.
Right. And I'm sure you're gonna find cases where somebody may or may not say their health is connected to that, but, yeah. And so, that's what I'm getting at. I'm not sure if or how or what we could make as a requirement to conceal the inverter. But I think the setback needs to be there.
I think as long as we require that it cannot be any closer to the property than where it's stated now in their drawings.
Right.
And I think, my estimate, I think, it's already on the, as far as the inverter and stuff, they already have that fence.
Yes.
And that's already protected. I just think by putting up a fence and all that kind of stuff, it's just bringing more attention to it.
Well,
I don't think it's going to.
think about the angle of their house. They may see if they're driving down the road, they're thinking of where their house is now. As far as visually speaking, they're gonna see the fence, the perimeter fence, and they're gonna see all these rays.
Statements, because of the.
Yeah, they walk straight to the road to the north, they're not gonna see the river anyway. I think they were thinking of health concern, but I don't think this body is the body to determine the magnetic impact of the inverter at.
At 600 feet or
But yeah,
100 feet or anything like that. Okay, so based on this discussion,
Just one clarifying question. You said Exhibit A, but I think you actually meant the new site plan.
so I indicated
yes.
on that specific item that it's exhibit A as
as
presented
revised.
today.
Want this for your file?
And you had stated that it's approximately a quarter into the project area, correct?
Yes, I'm looking at Exhibit A and I'm saying, but this is the Exhibit A with the cutout, okay, for the floodplain, and the inverter is still in approximately, it's down a little closer to the road, but it was the same distance that he testified that we've been talking about. So this is the one that this inverter setback would be attached to.
We don't have that mentioned, right? There's nothing on there that says, that states how far it is.
And I don't know if that's exact.
Thought he mentioned that they didn't have that determined.
Well, the way I understood the testimony was, is the new requirement 300 feet? Or inverter setback from a dwelling?
No, it's 150 for any component.
Okay. But I understood it was approximately 600 feet.
That's what he was saying.
Is that the way you understood
he
it?
was saying, what he was saying was that technically they're under.
No obligation.
Correct.
Right.
Because when we approved that, that was under our standards and guidelines, which were more stringent
Yes.
than what is now. So,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? So if they were new coming in today, what we approved then was more stricter than what is, if he was coming in new today.
Well, we can do the simple
Right,
math.
we are going by the old code.
This is a square 40. So a square 40 is a quarter by a quarter. Is that right? So a quarter is 1320. And his house is not quite to the halfway line. So that the 600 feet is a realistic distance as to what he had indicated.
So you can put in there that
No closer than what is proposed. Yes. Right. Well, but we're looking here from the house to there.
So that's why I think we have to draw a measurement from here to here and then bring it up.
Right. But, like I said, if you just do the rough math, a 40 by 40 is a quarter mile by a quarter mile. Well, a quarter mile is 1,320 feet. And so, see, he's not even to the center point. And so that'd be, what is it, 660 or 680? And so the distance from here to there is probably 600 feet. But we're not gonna put feet, we're just gonna put no more than where it is now. Okay. So this is what I hear you guys would like proposed. To be added to their request. 1, the fence will be chain link steel post in accordance with the height of requirement, subject to IDNR approval, like Jackie said, based on their floodplain water flow and stuff like that. 2, Just like on your sheet, the facility owner ensure that all vegetation growing in the perimeter of the facility and all land outside of the perimeter fence be identified in the agreement as part of the leased property and appropriately maintained. Maintenance may include, but not limited to, mowing, trimming, chemical control, or use of livestock as agreed to by the landowner. 3, emergency and non-emergency contact information shall be kept up to date with the Community Development Department and be posted in a conspicuous manner at the main entrance to the facility and also visible from the public roadway. 4, vegetative screening such as species of pine trees or evergreen trees shall be 3 to 5 foot at planting as proposed in the application, or in this case, across from the house and extending 100 foot on each side of the house. And 5, the inverter setback may be no closer than what is proposed in, I'm going to call it Exhibit A, that was proposed on the screen tonight. Yes?
The one about vegetative screening, where do you want that out? Do you want that just south of the fence? Do you want that along the south property line along the right of way?
What's the distance between the fence and the property? Actually, there is no, what do I want to call them, panel directly across from their house. So they could be inside the fence, they could be outside the fence and still, so that's why you're asking the question.
Right, if you wanted it along the fence or if you wanted just in this area.
I don't think we want it along the fence, I think we want it along the roadway. Okay, he said roadway, because see the fence jogs and follows the outline of the panel.
Correct, yes.
We don't want the screening way up there, we want it down here, right across.
I would say along the roadway.
Along the roadway, okay?
So will that be along the whole width of the roadway?
No, across from the house and extending 100 feet on either side of the house. A minimum of 100 feet. They can do more. If the property owner talks to them and says, I'd like 200 feet, and they agree to it, they can do that. But it has to be a minimum of 100.
And maintain it.
And maintain.
If it dies, it gets replaced.
Yes.
It doesn't go, we put it there, we can't help that it died.
Yeah. Yeah, it has to live for 40 years of the life of the project. So we've got those 5 things for this particular case. Okay, let me get back. Don, I think you made the motion to approve this, or to get this on the floor. Do you agree to add these 5 to the petition?
Yes.
And who seconded it? Fair? Do you agree to add these 5 to the petition?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got a motion to accept this with the 5 conditions. Okay, so now we've got Gabe's findings of facts. He has, what is it, 1427? I've got the wrong paper. 14 positive and 2 not applicable. Yeah, 14 positive. What's your feelings on Gabe's findings of facts? Is there a motion to accept them? McClanahan moves to accept the findings of facts. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Lapsley. Further discussion?
I don't like that they can harm.
Yeah. Note that
pictures of.
That's very good farm ground through there.
Yeah, one of these days where somebody's gonna have to learn how to eat sunlight. All in favor of the findings, say aye. All opposed? Findings are approved. Okay, Sam, when we go to vote on it, it's always a voice vote roll call. So Jackie calls each person individually, and you say yay or nay. Now, this is a Class A case. We don't have authority on this. So we're making a recommendation to the county board, and our recommendation is to approve their proposal with the 5 attachments. Okay, so we will call the question.
Hager? Yes. Lapsley? Yes. Flanagan?
Yes.
Vaughn?
No.
Miller? Chairman Musser?
Yes. Okay, recommendation will go forward. Okay, let's begin to take a look up to date again.
It's hard, you know, when you turn out the nice free corn and beans and all that. Yeah, so you're like, well, this one over here, we're gonna turn it all out. So maybe it's smarter about when they do their videos.
Okay, next case is 22-38S EDPR requesting an extension of their 1022 approval for a 5 megawatt commercial solar farm in a conservation district. My recommendation is that there were quite a few questions that were not able to be answered, and so the chair will accept a motion to continue this till the February meeting. Do we have enough room on the February docket?
Yes.
Okay, or do you have other suggestions?
No, if you weren't comfortable with the answers that you got this evening, and they're able and willing to come back and present the answers to those questions, I can email them, let them know specifically what those were. Having said that,
Okay, what's you guys' feeling?
No, I agree.
Oh, I agree.
I don't.
I'd like to see, because I mean, on my end, on this end, I'd like to see a little bit more of, well, like on this last one, where it's showing where the parking, where the fencing is. Right here, it's just a purple line, and it's just kind of, you know, I mean, and there was just too many questions, like, when we asked, you know, where do you provide the parking? I'm not sure. Are they cutting off, I mean, are they taking the trees out? I mean, I guess for me, I hate, I mean, it's one thing, I guess, if you're putting solar panels on, but that's the whole point, is that it's gonna go back to the land that it was, but not really if they're cutting a ton of trees down. And then you start cutting trees down, that changes a lot of the topography and the flow
Especially
of
if
the
it's a
ground.
ravine or there's a big tile line or
Yeah, I
something,
mean,
or a drainage
and that's
situation.
That's a big chunk of trees.
and I think, having said that, they can tell you what they plan to do, understanding that that may change somewhat. I mean, like any site's gonna change once all their studies and approvals are done. If they give you a better idea of where they plan to put everything, just acknowledging that they may have to deviate from that a little bit.
I guess when they come in and ask for an extension, do you resend out to neighboring? Do they receive? Yeah. Okay, I didn't know for sure on that one, because I do know when they were in here the last time and did that, this house was on the market, and I do know it's sold since then. So I was curious to if they received.
Yeah, we notify all neighbors again, same posting notification.
Okay, so Amy, are you making a motion to continue till February?
Yes.
Okay. McClanahan moves to continue to February. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Vaughn seconds. Further discussion? All in favor of continuing till February, say aye.
Aye.
We'll put it on the February docket. And you're in between those two.
Oh, no.
Last week right now, by Friday, notice, well, we get notice out on Friday, another Wednesday, last night.
For continuation, we don't have to publish it and send a letter out. I can get a letter tomorrow.
Because we're continuing to see. Okay. That's all I was worried. I didn't want to walk away from tonight and then go tomorrow. No, we can't. We're
Yeah,
good.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, because you're continuing, you're getting public notice this evening.
Okay. Okay, we need the next one.
Are you moving faster than I am? Nothing new there.
Okay, next case is 2402V, Judah International Ministries requesting a variance to allow the addition and one place to be approximately 14 feet from the property line and another place 16 feet, which is too close in an A1 district. Is there a motion to get this on the floor?
So moved.
Okay, McClanahan moves, seconds. Fair seconds. Okay, we have no findings of fact on this, but, okay, the old part of the building is gonna be torn down and the new footprint is just a little bit bigger and different, configuration than the part that they're tearing down. And so there's those two instances where it's gonna be too close to the property line. As Don indicated in the discussion, it's all trees, and like the petitioner testified that past the trees, there's a ravine, and so there's not like, even though the surrounding area was what, R1, there's not gonna be any building done probably on that ravine. And so he did indicate it was privately owned by somebody else. They did not own it. And so,
And I take it those people were,
they obviously did not object.
they obviously, nobody objected to it, so.
Right.
They just need some decent weather to get started.
Yeah. Or, whatever else it takes. I'm not sure, I assume money as well as everything.
This is a large project.
Yes. And the history, I guess every county had a TB clinic. And so it's probably about time that building came down. Okay, anything else you want Jackie to include in the finding of facts? You got enough that you need? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the findings as discussed? Vaughn moves, Lapsley seconds. Any further discussion on the findings? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Findings are approved, and we will call the question, and we have authority to approve this or disapprove it.
Lapsley? Yes. McClanahan?
Yes.
Vaughn?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Fair? Yes. Chairman Leslie?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay. And you don't think there's any other snags that we've missed?
No. And it wasn't until the last hearing when he said, we meet all the setbacks, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, ugh.
Oh, this went in there. Okay, our last case is 2403B, Steve Marshall, variance to waive the requirements to allow the construction of an accessory structure to be 1 foot from the edge of the right-of-way, which is 24 foot closer than what's allowed in an R1 district. Is there a motion to get this on the floor? Okay, Bond moved and McClanahan second. Okay, discussion or thoughts?
You have a survey done.
Yeah.
Knows where the line is.
Yes.
Where it's at.
And he indicated either in them pictures or pictures he has, he knows where the flags or the stakes are. And who knows why that divot or that jog ended up out of that piece.
Well, probably at one time, I mean, whether or not, who knows how long, it could have been the intent to make this, you know, like you said, a circle drive.
Yeah,
a
cul-de-sac
type thing,
thing.
and who knows what could have gone, you know what I mean, but that, I mean.
And that was our best guess when he came in.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
mean,
why it was
there's,
designed
that
that
is
way.
so heavily wooded, I mean, I'm still trying to figure out where he said that lane comes down and starts going the other way, I'm like, where?
Okay, if you look on, Exhibit C, okay, you can't see where the lane, but you can see where it comes out over here on the edge.
Yeah, I
by
see it
this
right
little,
here, but he said it goes,
hayfield or cornfield. It has to weep around through them trees because you can see the little white line coming out for that.
oh, I see, way down there, okay,
Yeah, see
yeah.
that?
Oh, wow.
So who knows how it goes through the trees down there, but you can see where it comes out.
Yeah, I don't know how to get farm equipment out of it, that's crazy.
My guess is he's not taking his 8-row combine through there.
No.
It's probably a hayfield or something. Anyway.
Well, nobody objects to it being, I don't see it being.
Okay, so findings of fact, the unusual jog in the property line at that corner. I don't know, you could probably word it better than that. You know, if that property line had stayed straight, he'd be okay.
Right.
And so, as well as there are no more houses on farther. The lane is only used by the farmer to get to that field in the back. And it's limited to the northwest because of 474. There's not going to be any big building to the northwest because of 474. And so, and he's going to continue to use his current drive to access the new building. He's not going to ask for a new drive off of Shelby Lane. And it's going to be for personal use, not to be rental storage. Anything else? Okay, what's your thoughts on the findings of facts as discussed?
Make a motion to approve findings.
Okay, Bond moves to approve the findings as discussed. Is there a second?
Second.
Miller seconds. You know, that's how you get your per diem. You get your name in the minutes.
Can we start all over?
Thank you for being a extra. We still need another alternate probably, don't we? So anyway, back to the findings as discussed. We've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the findings say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Findings are approved, and this is Class B, so we have final authority on this case. We'll call the question.
McClanahan?
Yes.
Vaughn?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Baird? Yes. Lastly? Chairman Leslie?
Yes. Yes. Next month, how many cases?
As of now, we have one Class C, and now we'll have that Class A continue. So just
We are
Peace
adjourned.
out. I'll be here for March though.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, most appreciated.
It is, every time I talk to an article about somebody who's hypersensitive. That guy is trying to figure out when they can get
Yeah. Woo! $1 million. Yeah, snow, not my dog. Oh, yeah.
Whatever anyone's feeling.
Right. I did not get any this year. I got more this year than I ever had. Well, like I said, I stopped counting my calendars because the postage got too much. And I had people literally like calling me and saying, oh, I'm supposed to, what do I do to get back on your list and your calendar and all that stuff? I'm like, what? Your calendar? I'm like, really? Well, I used to take up the ones that have recipes on them. And I had to do like this. Oh my gosh, I put them in my car. Seriously, I had no idea there were people that like they've done like staying. I guess I'll do it again. Hang on. Well, I'll need to get on that. Like you're right. So
See, and I would get to the point where I would get to late and I would forget, and I would have the card made, and then I would text a picture of it to everybody.
Denise, yes, you did that home on today for Dawn the flower shop. Oh, thank you. Anyhow, I do remember a flower shop.
So that actually is Don's wife, that had that business, and he says she is still in operation. So,
Really?
she's on my list.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I emailed Judy.
Julie?
Julie. Okay.
Yeah, I just delivered flowers last night when I got home from work.
Really?
I know it's.
Yeah, I did post that, and I looked at him like, huh, we just renewed this back in April, but it looked like it was closed down, but it looked like in 2019, maybe it was reopened. I could be wrong on the date, but it looked like just recently it was opened up again.
Kind of retired from the greenhouse.
Okay.
And then she went out to the house and.
Yeah, so you, every month you will, as basically,
Why not?
Yeah.
It's a craft.
Oh, it is, yeah.
I can't do it.
my aunt, she didn't do anything with the flowers.
Yeah.
I always tell my husband, if you're gonna bring them to me, have them already in the vase.
Just don't buy them drugs or Valentine's.
Oh
No.
gosh, no, you pay 10 times more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's horrible. What did they say? Prices.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I will make a note of that, because I did email him just to make sure, you know, that it was still in operation.
Don said,
Not knowing.
hey Julie, your husband said, you're not done working yet.
All right, sounds good, thank you. Questions?
Okay.
Have a good night.
Yep.
Take care.
I said, Google all the different things.